Welcome to Resolve IBS and IBD Naturally. I'm Courtney Cowie, a nutrition therapy and functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner. If you are struggling with the symptoms of IBS or IBD and want to get to the root cause of your symptoms so you can take back your health through a whole person approach, this podcast is for you. Just a disclaimer that the information I'm presenting in this podcast is for educational purposes only and should not be taken as medical advice. You should always consult a qualified practitioner before making any changes to your health or medical regimen. That being said, let's get on with the show.
I'm super excited. We're going to be talking about the liver and detoxification today. And you and I were having kind of a short pre-conversation about just how this is the time of year people start thinking about this. Or if not now, they will be once the new year comes, because everyone's in this whole, let's just eat whatever. The sugar's out on the table anyhow, blah, 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 blah. And some of the more proactive people are probably like, let me figure out how to detox myself on the weekends to kind of undo the damage I'm doing, right?
Yes.
So I
Or
think
even
this is a
think
good
about it,
conversation. Yeah.
yeah, and or even think about it says, okay, maybe you want to save this, right, for listening later when the beginning of the year comes. But also, I
Yeah.
think there is value of listening now and pay attention to a few things that we're going to say that will help your liver throughout this experience of the end of the year, right?
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, let's just dive right in, because I think we got some good info to share just from a knowledge of nutrition standpoint, but also just how you and I use various functional testing, specialized lab testing, to get indicators on whether or not people really are properly detoxifying all the junk in their system. But maybe before we go there, because I know this is an area you mentioned, and I agree, this is super important. Should we maybe lay the scene and just debunk the myth that some people
Mm.
might buy into, that we don't need to detox, that the liver just inherently works really great and we don't really need to give it any kind of jump start or special attention? Should we talk to that first, Maria?
Oh yeah, I think we do. I mean, we are bombarded with toxins from all levels, right? If you just think from the foods that we drink, that we eat, the water, the products that we put on our skin, medications, drugs, recreational or not, right? And so on. So the body, especially the liver, has to. It's a critical organ to
Mhm.
help us, with all these processes. And oftentimes, people, I had a client years ago who got upset when I mentioned about liver and possibly detoxifying the liver. It's like, that doesn't exist. That is not supported by, the medical industry, that there is no such thing as liver getting toxic. And, I'm like, okay, this is someone who is not interested on the next level, or wasn't, or maybe at the time, I wasn't able to explain very well to him in a way. But the reality is that is possible. And today, this is many years ago, this is like 10 years ago. Today
Mhm.
we have so many tests also that help us to identify these processes where things might be actually not working very well. So
Right.
yes, it is possible. And I think also, if we think about, is that true that the body's supposed to do all this naturally? That is correct, right?
Mhm.
The liver and the glutathiones and the systems, that the body put in place is a very smart. However, not all of us were born, even from a genetic standpoint, with all these systems working perfectly.
Mhm.
So, what you and I are going to be talking about, okay, there is, methods that we can identify if there is maybe gaps that we need to fill in, and then things, process that we have to pay attention, whether we're going to put, it's going to be food, supplementation, or using exercise, part of it, which is
Yeah.
critical for the phase 3 of the liver, which we'll talk more about it. But yes, I mean, it is critical that we're looking through all angles, because the side effects are tremendous,
Mhm.
from metabolic chaos where, your blood sugar go out of whack, right? And that can that can increase insulin resistance risks, and then in other cardiovascular risks and so on. And fatigue and hormonal imbalance. Is that a hormone problem, or is that a methylation process that you and I can touch upon it,
Right.
and get these big words out of the way? It says, what the hell that means, right?
Yeah.
So yes, we have a lot to to unpack and also understand it is possible that things are not working properly, and some of the side effects that you're having, including, some of the that I mentioned, but weight gain and resistance,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
They're just not going away.
Yeah, exactly, Maria. Well, and I think you're kind of bridging into what are some symptoms that a person might be showing that could indicate they could have a liver burden, right? We use a burden, meaning that the liver is overburdened with trying to manage. And I should interject here, it's not just our organ of detoxification, it plays a critical role in sugar handling, particularly between meals, right? So it's one of the biggest multitasking organs in the body. And sometimes when I describe to people, like, what can happen even with the adrenal glands is like this too, right? Like the adrenals will jump in and help to pull sugar out of the muscles and liver if your blood sugar drops too dramatically. And yes, it's a great mechanism that it has, but we don't want to be having it play too much of a role on that end and not being able to regulate cortisol levels, which have physiological normal function in the body. And so, with any of these organs, whether we're talking liver, adrenals, or others that play multiple roles in the body, we want to try to minimize the functions that they're stepping in to play a role in that they don't need to be by getting the body healthy as a whole, right? And so if the adrenals cannot manage sugar handling and only worry about managing good cortisol production at the right time of day and the right amount, that's going to take a huge burden off of it. Same with the liver. Like the liver, to be able to detoxify, we got to make sure that it's got enough energy and it's freed up enough to focus on that. But yeah, back to the symptoms, Maria. Let's kind of touch on like some of the symptoms. You started to mention weight loss, resistance, unusual weight gain, right?
Yeah.
What might be some other symptoms that could clue people in that they've got liver issues?
Well, fatigue is one,
Yeah.
cravings, getting back to your, metabolic conversation, skin issues, PMS, brain fog, belly fat, and then you think about, well, somebody might be listening and says, I have them all.
Right.
And that is possible.
Yeah.
And then we know as a society, right, we think about what is the thing? What am I doing? Oh, the body's so complex. And I
Yeah.
tell my clients it's not one thing. And
Yeah.
depending how long we've been going on into this roller coaster and not feeling well, you
Yeah.
know, it's going to be multiple things, and I like to think about the liver as kind of a metabolic COO, nothing in your body is going to run without the COO in a company, the
Yeah.
operations manager here,
Yeah.
and that is, from what you just mentioned, if you think about the glucose regulation that we talked in the past, even examples of me using the CGM and all that kind of experiments, but it's going to be involved in the glucose and the hormone, the fat burning
Totally.
process, the detoxification process. So it is your metabolic COO, you know.
Yeah.
So if imagine now, because most of our audience here, right, if you're listening, you probably worked in a company, you're working right now, you're a busy professional, you have what it takes to succeed in your life, and you want to see, okay, now put yourself into those words, the world that's you pile up, you look at your desk and you like pile up with paperwork,
Mm-hmm.
you know I'm like, oh my God, oh, what are you going to do? I mean, do you think that you're going to be effective and speedy? That is really what I want you to think about this liver conversation, right? And
Yeah.
how metabolic it is, important to your metabolism is. So it's like, toxins, your paperwork is toxins and blood
Right.
sugar spikes just from that perspective, right? So no department is going to run well. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, 100%, Maria. I mean, I've even heard it said, well, I would offer this too. Like, I think even if you're noticing you're walking through the grocery store, say laundry detergent aisle, it's really hitting you, right? Like any kind of gasoline, right? Like more and more sensitivity to like environmental smells and odors could be another sign or clue that your liver is overburdened. Because again, it has to break down all of those, like, what do you call them? Like through the nose, right? Inhaled like
Yes.
chemical burdens along with everything else we're getting through the skin or ingesting too. And I've even heard it said, and this might not be quite this simplistic, but that one of the reasons why like we as adults tend to struggle more with motion sickness issues. And it's hard. Like, I don't know if you struggle with this, Maria, but I still have kids that like swings and swinging on the swing set. So
Oh,
I can only do that for so long before I start
oh.
to feel really ill, like really dizzy, really not good, and part of the argument for why that happens more so as we age is that our bodies are breaking down, these organs are getting more encumbered and overburdened just holistically, but the liver in particular just can't handle that type of motion input like it could when we were young and super resilient and able to perform all these tasks better as children. And so just things to think about in terms of like, your own unique experience of life. And if you're one of those people that used to love riding roller coasters and you just can't handle it anymore, I mean, it's maybe not just the liver, but an overburdened liver is going to make that type of thing much worse, right?
Well, I never heard about that though, but I am, since I remember being a person as my teenage years and young, I always have issues with smells.
Oh,
So I'm
interesting.
chronically working on my liver,
Yeah.
and for since I became especially or starting on my journey as a health, I had no idea,
Yeah.
about 15 years ago or earlier than that. I had no idea about that. I was just like, I can't tolerate any smokes, any perfumes. I mean, gasoline. I mean, and also interesting that you mentioned that because since very young, I can do roller coasters up and down, but anything that swings, it
Yeah.
takes literally seconds.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Start
mean,
to feel. Yeah.
yeah, I start to feel ill and that's it, get out. So I haven't been one of those swings kind of stuff, like the Vikings and all that. I'm like, the last time was like, I don't know, decades ago. I'm like, that wasn't good. Like, I'm
No.
not putting myself in that situation again.
Oh, for sure. And I don't think it's simply just the liver in those situations,
No.
but I have heard that like if your liver is congested, it's gonna make it much more likely you're gonna get more dizzy and ill faster and have a lower tolerance even compared to your average peer group, right? So it's interesting, Maria. And I think as we're kind of talking about symptoms, maybe another piece we should clarify for folks listening is like, well, why is it that people maybe of today would have more propensity towards liver toxicity than say like 150 years ago? Because I think setting the context for like how easy it is for our livers to get overburdened and congested is going to help people understand why it's not just enough to assume that organ's working lickety split and not ever think about it, right?
Yes, yes. Well, we kind of touched a little bit earlier on that, some of the reasons that today we're way more exposed to it. Uh, you know, I think that I think that we kind of evolved in a situation here, we evolved to think that just because we're born with this body over here, the body is supposed to handle it all
Yeah.
and from the beginning of the stages, and we kind of know that takes a long time for the body to adapt. And then
Hmm.
the question is adapting to what level? So back on the day, right, I mean 100 years ago, 150 years old, we didn't have these exposures that we have today, this toxicity
Yeah.
from the water to the food to the products. I mean, there was none. And thinking about even what you mentioned earlier about the cortisol and circadian rhythm, our sleep,
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
importance of even sleep of detoxification of the process of our organs, right, overnight, and all that, and the amount of even movement that we had back on the day, not automobiles, vehicles. We had to walk everywhere, we had to hunt. I know we're going backwards over here back on those days, but those are the natural ways that the body function. Not to
Exactly.
say that everybody born on those times had a perfect, body or genetics, right?
Hmm.
Uh, but the reality is that whoever we are that passes from a gene generation to generation, it's like, I think it's like 7 generations or something like that, that
Yeah.
we continue on the traces. We see even alcoholism, addictions on the genes that they keep passing on and on and on and on, until we start changing a little bit. So it takes decades, takes a long time for this body over here to adjust. So I
Hmm.
think that people lose perspective because we're so busy, and we keep going and going and doing and we try to make things life easier for us.
Yep.
Well, the easier for us has a cost, right?
Exactly.
It has a
That's just it.
cost. So, yeah, feel free to kind of share some of the other toxins or exposures that we have had in the last decades that maybe we didn't have in the past that could be impacting this liver capacity.
Oh, for sure, Maria. And I mean, again, there's so many of them. One of the tests that I know you and I both run frequently in our practices is something called a total tox burden, right? Which is a specialized lab that looks at chemical toxins, also a few other types of toxins, but the chemical toxins are kind of like the piece we're talking about environmentally that's really shifted in the last 100 to 150 years. And I think there's so much to say on this front. I mean, I would also say, just as our population has grown over the last 150 years, just human pollutants, whether that's like emissions from vehicles in large cities, right? Like, I can't tell you how many times I'm looking at a total tox test at that chemical lab or that portion of it. And it's all these weird chemicals that come from like industrial settings or car emissions, and sometimes it'll even like linked to tobacco smoke, and a lot of times the people that are doing a holistic approach to their health aren't smokers. Sometimes they are, but mostly not. But it really makes you aware of just how easy it is for average people that are well-meaning and trying hard to avoid these things to get them in their system. And I think the other kind of interesting study, and I don't know which research journal did this particular study, but I'm sure you've heard of it too, Maria, is they looked at like the placenta or the umbilical cord or both of like pregnant women. This was within the last few decades, and compared the number of toxins found in that tissue to like what it was maybe 50 years earlier. And it's like tenfold higher, right? Like, even from the point that that baby is developing in utero to the point it has its first day on this planet, it's already through mom's environment and body and what mom's getting exposed to, getting all of those same exposures. And so I think just what's being put into our consumer goods. I mean, God, we could talk for hours about the denaturing of the food supply, soil depletion, the spraying, GMO crops, all of that, just the way we store our grains, right? Like, all of that sets the stage for all of these different biochemical, biotoxin, or actual chemical additive toxins that people can't see, taste, smell, whatever, right? And they're just coming right in, and it's adding to this load. And because we've gravitated towards more of a convenience, quick food prep, quick everything culture, very few people are just taking the time to grab real food from the grocery store and like literally meal prep day in and day out, right? I mean, it's maybe starting to come back a little bit in a subculture level, but I would argue that a lot of people, even if they have those best intentions or those, they want to make that effort, they've got kids they're running to this and that and the next thing, and then they've got all these things going on at night. And I feel like it's not uncommon that people are either working more than 40 hours a week in their primary job, or might even have like another side gig going on at the same time. Plus, if they have children at home, those kids have all these hobbies and activities, and that pace of life, it wears you out. It's energy demanding, and most people, I think, despite wanting to, just default to, well, what's quick and easy and convenient, we'll just make the best choice. But even the healthy convenience food choices nowadays, because of all of the things we just spoke on, they're going to be little like riddled with chemicals and full of, junk that wasn't there 50, 100 years ago. So yeah, that's what I see.
Yes. No, well said, well said. And so if we think about it, now that we kind of educated people, at least in some of these levels of toxicity, right?
Hmm.
And how they can impact our hormones, our blood sugar, and our systems, and give some of the symptoms. One thing that really gets me on my nerves is that, especially in the beginning of the year and the spring and the fall, we hear about this liver cleanses,
Oh, sure. Yeah.
or let's detox program, and that, to me, it's fine idea, right?
Hmm.
But is that complete? And I
Right.
think that, well, again, going through the convenience, most of us are saying, okay, if there is something that I can do to start my year, it's like a liver detox, and some
Yeah.
people are like, oh, detox, that sounds like, or they change the word to cleanse, like,
Yeah.
what the hell that means? Like, what am I cleansing about? you know?
Yeah.
So what is your experience on that? Because I have some experience on that, but what do you think about this cleanses out there that are like
Yeah.
3 days, 5 days, 1 week, and you're like, your life is going to transform upside down.
Yeah, 100% Maria. I mean, I'm with you. Those are a pet peeve for me too. I feel like at best, if people are hopping on that bandwagon, it's probably not even as much the product as it is the diet they're following for that short window of time that's giving them the felt benefit, right? Because we know if someone's not eating the best and they suddenly shift their diet for 3 to 14 days in a better direction, how do you isolate whether it was the diet or the cleanse kit that that moved the needle? And I mean, average people who probably are carrying some extra body weight and maybe not feeling the best, having a lot of brain fog, having energy deficits, they're going to actually feel a greater return on whatever changes they make. I feel, right? Just because it doesn't take much to start to move the needle, but I'm with you because I feel like it's very much in alignment with this sort of quick hit diet fad culture that we live in, where it's like, go on this diet for a month or two and drop 15, 20 pounds. And that's kind of been the party line for a long time, all the way back to the Weight Watchers and Jenny Craig and those days. It's like everybody kind of wants to do this quick reboot and get the quick result and then go back to the way they were doing life and assume it's gonna hit or it's gonna last. And the biggest misnomer is whether we're talking about a liver detoxification or just improving liver health, I would argue it needs to be a constant, ongoing, daily commitment for the rest of your life on some level. And yes, once you have a healthy, good foundational baseline of diet and lifestyle, and I would say gentle detoxification support, we could talk about what that means. Then, if you want to do periodic, like more intensive pushes, if you will, first of all, your body can handle it, and B, it's not going to be. I think the results are going to last longer because you've already also got this long-standing kind of plan and commitment to keeping your liver and your whole body as healthy as possible. Wouldn't you agree, Maria?
Oh, yes, I agree. It's, a lot of people just think that the detox or a cleanse is just about ditching the meat or the coffee or whatever, the sugars, right? That's one of the
Mm-hmm.
big things. And
Yeah.
as a former, pre-diabetic and sugar addict, I mean, I can say, I mean, it's a big deal to let those things go. It's really a big deal to let it
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
Or another trend that we see is just going vegan, for a whole lot, for a long minute, a
Right.
week or two or something. And
Right.
we're not saying we're not ditching the vegan diet over here, but as we look into how the phases of the liver, there's 3 different phases we can discuss here. They all need different nutrients.
Exactly.
They
Yeah.
and so what you are discussing here is, yes, I'm with you. It's okay to give the body a break. It's okay to
Mm-hmm.
give the body a break, and we're not even, yeah, we didn't even mention alcohol yet.
Right.
Okay, how many people go January, what is that? The dry January, right?
Oh, is that a
And
thing, Maria? Yeah.
oh
Yeah.
God, which world do you live in?
Oh, I don't drink much, so I mean, I'm kind of
No,
like in
no.
that weird zone to begin with. Even though I
I
live in a
just,
state that's like riddled with beer, and I mean, yeah, I mean, you gotta
oh
trust me. I've been on the
yes.
weirdo bandwagon for a long time. I don't even watch the news, Maria.
No, I'm saying this because I don't watch the news either, right? But I've been a waitress, so I mean, you go to work on
Oh,
January. Nobody, a lot of people are like, no, dry January. Oh my
oh,
God! But guess to February 1st.
it's like everybody goes bonkers again, right?
Yeah, so I mean, you see this clearly. So a lot of folks, right? Whether your exposure is, but pay attention. So they go into, okay, we are decreasing the meat, we're going vegan, or they do a whole 30, right? A whole
Yeah,
30
yeah,
diet.
yeah, yeah,
And that's great. They get great results. The day after, they go right back on it. They cannot wait. And
yeah.
what we're discussing here is, let's focus on, okay, this might be a way for you to kind of, get used to a different lifestyle, but
Exactly.
understand that the body operates needing all the nutrients,
Yeah, yeah,
right? Can the
Exactly.
body process? Can the liver process? Are you, going through the motion over here that your body detoxifying, that you're eliminating, the waste, the toxins,
Yeah,
that it generates, constantly in our body. So we
exactly.
need nutrients,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And, whether is a habit that you say you would like to do less of,
mhm,
whether is the sugars, the added sugars, the simple carbs, the alcohol, or maybe fried foods. We all know. I mean, we all know that these are not the greatest thing for our body, but we
sure.
might not know how it impacts truly, and
Yeah,
how it is huge for our liver to
yeah,
detoxify all these toxins that we're bombarding. So just
yeah.
think about if you go to a bar, right? What people are eating. I mean, and they eat this constantly. They're eating, a lot of foods that are, you know, full of seed oils, gluten, highly sprays, herbicides,
Yep.
pesticides. The oftentimes the amount of carbs on those foods are way higher than the protein, and there is
Hmm.
very little healthy fats in there. And then they're drinking the alcohol on top of it, and that goes on for hours sometimes, and they
Exactly.
do this sometimes multiple times a week.
Yeah. Yeah.
um you know the body will handle okay for a minute here, but eventually, you're gaining the weight, and then you, like, even if you decrease the consumption of the things, you're not operating again at the level of before. When you
Yeah.
wonder what has happened here, what I did before going onto this diet or stopping this is not the same results I'm getting now. This could be a consequence of doing this for a while, and including the liver being burdened here, right?
You know what's crazy? How many people are told their gut symptoms are normal when nothing about running to the bathroom after every meal feels normal? If you've been dealing with chronic bloating, loose stools, reflux, urgency, or fatigue, and every test says you're fine, you probably feel stuck and maybe even hopeless. You've spent money on supplements, tried cutting out foods, and maybe even saw a functional medicine practitioner and still feel like you're missing something. That's exactly why I created my free training where I debunk the three biggest myths that keep people sick and stuck. Number one, if your tests come back normal, there's nothing wrong with you. Number two, testing is just a way to sell expensive supplements. And number three, if functional medicine didn't work before, nothing will. Let's separate fact from fear and get to the truth about what your gut's really trying to tell you. Watch the free training now. The link's in the show notes.
Exactly, Maria. Yeah. And I want to just interject because I'm sure some people watching this are thinking, how do I'm thinking how to set this up. Like, we're not by any means advocating that you have to be 100% perfect once you make the leap to become, let's say, a health nut, right? Somebody who's very health oriented. And trust me, Maria and I both are not 100% perfect. But
Right.
what I do think is worth considering is that if you got to a place where you knew, first of all, how to eat and live in a way that was generally mostly health promoting, and you could do it most of the time, it will get you to a place where you have that freedom then to quote unquote fall off the wagon, partake, or even like just to use
Mhm.
my own self as an example. I know this was about a year ago. My mom gifted us a trip down to Milwaukee, right, which is a biggest city where I live, and found this bar that interestingly had like gluten-free beers. The entire facility had gluten-free beers. I was like, well, this is kind of novel and different. And I had made enough gains in my own health journey that I felt good about taking the liberty to enjoy that experience, but also coming from a
Mhm.
place that, like, I don't typically drink. It's a rare day
Right.
in my world when I have
Yeah.
alcohol. But I think the other side of that coin is when you can get to that place of having that confidence
Yeah.
and security in how your day to day is supporting your health, you don't tend to perseverate or feel this kind of crazy anxiety and
Mhm.
stress
Yes.
about falling off the wagon when you do, if you will. It just becomes kind of a normal, like every so often the situation presents. And it's like you either choose or you don't choose to partake. But if
Mhm.
you choose to partake, you don't like, oh my God, I did it, I screwed up. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like that's not a healthy thing to do. But I
Yeah.
think you'll also feel when you do indulge from time to time that there's less blowback or consequences in doing that because the majority of the rest of your waking life, you are working on your health in a way
Yes.
that is doable, truly does give you the gains. It doesn't have to be this crazy, spend hours a day, every day food prepping from
Yeah.
scratch and extras. Like I've
Yes.
had somebody recently told me, Maria, that they felt that they couldn't get the results they wanted in their health, which was mostly for them a weight loss journey because they just believe deep down it takes a ton of time for somebody to be healthy. And we could do a whole live on that topic, like separate
Maybe
from
we
this. But
should.
I had to
Yeah.
really question that. I'm like, really? It doesn't take me a ton of time. But then again, this is a journey that once you're on it,
Yeah.
you're slowly iterating and you get more efficient and better at figuring out ways to make your time efficient in terms of what you're investing in your health, right? But I want to just debunk this should not be this like crazy all consuming many hours a week thing to eat and live healthy to achieve the kind of like liver function or weight loss results that we're trying to talk about, right? So,
Yes, yes. I'm not into the extreme at all either.
yeah.
I mean, we build a very difficult relationship with food and
Yeah.
life
Yeah.
because we're not in a bubble.
Hmm.
Right? So yes, I mean, I give myself permission, to go to this place every 2 or 3 weeks, and have a glass of wine and do roasted wings. I
Oh,
love it.
there you
I
go.
bring my
Yeah.
I bring my laptop. Everybody knows my little corner in the place. I'm working there. I spend a couple hours. I catch up with the people, the bartender or rapey. I have one glass of wine and my 6 roasted wings, and I'm happy.
Yeah.
I
Right?
mean, I don't, so am I going to be, I'm like, oh my God, I did this? No,
Yeah.
no, because exactly what you're saying. And when I
Yeah.
started my journey, I'm sure you did too, that wasn't like that, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you can become obsessed about, I cannot do this, I cannot do this. And I
Exactly.
think that you and I are in the business of saying, you can.
Yes. Yes.
Let's get the terrain better here. Let's
Right.
build some habits. And there is some sacrifices in the beginning, right? There
Right.
is
Right.
extra time to cooking. But again,
Right.
we can dive into another session. Maybe we should just talk
Talk
about
about
that
that.
at some point,
Yeah.
and focusing on, how to get this started because it
Yeah.
is possible and then becomes like a norm that you can give yourself the flexibility and the freedom because
Totally.
it's life.
Totally.
Right.
Totally.
It is life.
Exactly.
And I want to go on vacation if I want to, you know, drink a little more than what I normally do, which is occasionally every 2 or 3 weeks. No, but I'm also supporting my body on sweating, eating healthy foods, and yada yada. So it's like, it's trade-offs that we
Yeah.
build. I always talk to my clients about trade-offs. So what is more important? Do you want to
Yeah.
wake up the next day with vibrancy to do the things,
Yeah.
or not?
Right. Right.
And if you
Right.
say, well, tomorrow I'm just going to lay low, and it says, okay, to what extent, do you want to go out today and feel? Because it's all about how we have that relationship with our body and our
Exactly.
emotions, and think, how am I going to feel if I do this? I mean, for
Exactly.
my place of resiliency, that's what we help our clients is to build the resiliency from inside out,
Exactly. Yes.
right?
Yeah, Maria. I mean, I would say it is true. It takes discipline to be healthy, but that doesn't equate to being in a prison that's psychologically constraining or physiologically punishing, right? Like you shouldn't be
Yes.
working out 3 hours a day to maintain your weight. You shouldn't feel like all you can eat is home cooked, super high quality prepped meals. I mean,
Right.
if you theoretically want to do that and could do that, awesome, good for you. But both of
Yeah.
us realize that's not practical for the majority of people. But if
Right.
you build your discipline like a muscle across these areas of life, I would argue you feel better, you have more self-belief, you have more confidence that comes from that. And when you choose to have a day of whatever you want to call it, a reward, freedom, looseness, if you will, with whatever food, exercise, you name it, you can really enjoy it and it's built right into the flow of life. It's not like I was like, balls to the walls for 2 weeks and now I'm gonna go haywire over here and drink 10 beers. Like that's not what we're talking about. So like
No.
I think it is a practice, like nothing comes easy, but I think people tend to see this whole journey sometimes if they haven't stepped into it and really understood how to commit in a sustainable way as like this extreme. Like either you have to be ultra crazy disciplined and insanely type A to do it well, or screw that and let's just live over
Yeah.
here and not try at all and just kind of let things happen randomly and chaotically. And what we're saying is no, there's like this sweet spot where yes, mostly you do have to exercise discipline and conscious decision, and just the coaching of what we do coaches people to think about plan things, right? Like do have a
Mm.
plan for yourself, because that actually takes a lot of energy away from having to decide in the moment and creating that stress for you in the moment. But also plan to allow yourself some leeway too, and allow yourself some downtime, and allow yourself some time to just simply do what you want to, whatever that looks like for you in that
Mhm.
moment every so often too. I think the body functions best with that degree of flexibility and freedom. You know what I mean?
Yes, because of it's a stressor.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've met, and this comes especially with women, that they're extremely stressed out about their diet.
Yeah.
And then, earlier you start talking about, cortisol, right?
Yeah.
And glucose, and how this can become a vicious cycle, and then ultimately leads to metabolic issues and fatigue. And we normally don't think that way, right? But
Mm-hmm.
and then I actually ask the question, if I notice if a person has built a relationship with food that is not healthy, it says, where is that coming from?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's coming from somewhere,
Yeah,
and oftentimes can be coming even from the environment, the household when we're kids.
exactly.
How the relationship with food and nutrition uh, comes around the table, or how
Mm-hmm.
the parents are talking about other people who are maybe a little bigger, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the fat and the clothing and how you look in those clothing. I mean, this is a very complex kind of conversation sometimes, but there are ways around it. And the ways around it is diving into, understanding what the body needs,
Mm-hmm.
and from a nutritional perspective, and lifestyle, not only nutrition, but also sometimes dealing with those traumas because they come to surface.
Yep.
A lot of data on trauma and obesity and
Oh,
cancer
sure.
and
Oh, sure.
addiction. So if this can be part of somebody's journey deep inside that they might not realize,
Yeah.
and that is a big stressor. That is a big
Yes.
stressor, I see. But part of what you and I, we're talking about in some ways things for us to pay attention, and action steps that we can do regarding the journey where you are now and where you want to become. But what you and I did at some point, right, from coming from one lifestyle to another, is to test.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's why
Yeah.
we do the work that we do as FDNs. And, we're always looking for, in learning about different test modalities, what they offer, and how we can offer those to our clients. Because, like we were mentioning early, from a detox, we just go into this cleanses and whatever that is going on out there. But is that good? Yes, can be helpful. The analogy that you and I were talking earlier, before the recording, is I like to think about a traffic jam.
Yeah.
And, you know, is that okay to remove one car out of that traffic jam? Yeah, it will help a little, right? Can we remove two? Yes. But do we know if there is any accidents in that causing in there? And what is the debris out of that accident? You know?
Exactly.
Um, so as we evolved, to see, is like some people like, okay, Maria, if give me the answers, I will do it. We're
Yeah.
looking for the data. And
Yeah.
that's what we do very well as well. And it says
Yes.
there is plenty of data that we can give and can
Totally.
help explain, from a liver and other systems, right? Other organs in the body, and how, to help explain the symptoms that one might be having.
Exactly.
And so that is an important piece for a lot of folks too,
Yeah.
that we can help them out, because when we have the data and then we can put a very personalized plan, that's where people hold on to it. It is not doing this blah, blah, blah that everybody's doing it, that taking that one car out of the traffic jam, right? Let's identify really what is creating the traffic jam. Is that, traffic lights that went crazy over here that are an accident? What caused that accident? Somebody slept on the wheel, right? So all those kind of things are part of identifying, the risks and also the causes for some of the symptoms that you might not have been able to handle on your own or discover on your own, that even your blood, that you do your blood markers, that whether it's complete or incomplete kind of a number of markers that you're getting from your physician is like, well, I still doesn't explain why I feel like that.
Exactly, Maria. Yes. Yeah. So why don't we talk a little bit about some of these tests and how we can use them to get an idea of the liver. And as you're saying all that, I just want to offer up, like, because when I mentioned the total tox burden, love that test. It doesn't necessarily have liver markers per se, but it gives us the other side of the equation where at a glance, you can really see pretty directly how potentially toxic, if you want to use that word, right? How much toxic burden a client has. And in terms of a number of different toxins that are being measured, but just in terms of, okay, are these coming out moderately elevated, extremely elevated, right? And then we can infer from that there probably are some breakdowns in the detoxification process, and or this person is getting a lot of exposures that are inputting this stuff into their system, and often we need to troubleshoot it from both. But one just like brief little story I want to share here, just to show you how, not you, Maria, but the people listening, how kind of sometimes simple the recommendations can be, because I think people jump to this thought like, what's the magic supplement I have to take to support my liver, right? So, real story, working with a client who has fat phobia, right? Just is very phobic of eating foods that contain dietary fat. And, we could go on and on about why dietary fat is important. We won't do that, but just understand that very, very important, especially in building high quality bile, which is the fluid that your liver constructs to actually package up and remove toxins from the body. So it's how the liver will actually attach and shuttle these toxins into the GI system, eventually move it through the intestines, and then to get pooped out, right? That's our primary way the body likes to remove this stuff. And so imagine if you're not eating much or barely any dietary fat, it's going to compromise your liver's ability to build bile. And on this particular person's total tox burden, I mean, just the number of markers that were in the moderately high to highly elevated zone was like through the roof, like I think a page and a half, if not two, on the summary page, which is, I mean, it's a big report, but that's a lot of markers, right? And just in looking at that, I just knew immediately, I'm like, we're not going to fix this with a supplementation. Down the road, potentially, yes, we can bring some things in to support, but right now, the primary thing that's going to move the needle for this person is, if possible, try to get them through this fat phobia thing going on and get some dietary fat in there, because if we can't get that bile constructing properly and moving the stuff out properly, I don't care what nutrient support you give the body, it's a traffic jam that's just not going to unbreak, right? It's going to be jammed up in there. So it can be that simple, just looking at the right testing in the context of diet and what you're eating, and having a skilled practitioner be like, okay, yes, we could jump to these 10 supplements over here, but that's not a smart strategy. Let's just start basic and simple. And just doing this one thing with your diet is going to actually move the needle fastest for you, right?
Yes. And I think that, again, the supplement can come in to fill in the gap sometimes. But what
Mm-hmm.
you're talking about is, this is not a gap.
Right, right, right,
Right.
right,
This is beyond the gap. Maybe there are some genetic gaps, right? Because
right.
you mentioned about the total tox, but there's other tests that we can do. But uh, well, I mean, we need to start with diet. Diet is
Right.
it, the nutrition is going to be first, and no matter what line of defense that we're talking about.
Exactly. Yep.
And supplementation often comes like, fourth, fifth. you
Right.
know, in my view, is like, yeah, sleep is crucial for all of it, but diet, stress, you
Yeah.
know, reduction or management of it. I mean, because it's going to impact every pathway that we can imagine, from a stress perspective. But the diet is the first, the supplement is last.
Exactly. Exactly.
oftentimes, so yeah, on the testing, just to interject on that, what you just mentioned, I mean, genetic testing is great to also help. It's not one
True.
of the first tests that we look into it, but oftentimes it can give some clues to individuals to say, what is genetically speaking that I might not be doing so well? Because we did this test, we did that test, we did maybe a stool test, which we see markers of liver in there too, right? How the
Mhm.
body's breaking down and so on, so on. We can do a Dutch test that actually talks about, metabolites in phase
Mhm.
1 and phase 2 of the liver, which you and I can talk about it here too. But then there is also genetics. And I see that. I
Yeah.
see that on folks that sometimes the glucuronidation, which is a phase 2 of the liver, is really weak. And then the glutathione, which is also in the phase 2, which is cleansing the process, to handle the debris, is also very weak. And it
Yep.
says, bingo, bingo. And it
Yeah.
says, so here's somebody trying, with the diet and supplementation and do this and that. But when we're looking into the genes and we find some imbalances like that, then that is what we're going to do here and focus to fill in the gap. And that is
Mhm.
sometimes supplementation can come in and we say, hey, maybe this is forever for you. In the
Right.
meantime, they're here the dietary things to help on these phases, of the liver,
Exactly.
you know.
Exactly.
So genetics has also come to play at some point, not sometimes in the beginning, but if you're listening to this and you already done a battery of tests and you've been implementing protocols, you've been changing your lifestyle, you've been doing this for some time, it might be an idea to do a genetic test because you might be able to fortify them, find out what those gaps are, right?
Yeah.
So why don't you talk about the Dutch, because that's a great test also, on the phase 1 and phase 2 of the liver that we can tell people more about.
Yeah, so I think, well, if we just start with the Dutch itself, what does it stand for? I think it's the dried urine test for comprehensive hormones or something like that, if I remember
Yeah. Mhm.
correctly, right, Maria? And sort of marketed as a hormone-specific test in the sense of looking at sex hormones. So that would be estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, the androgens, and then the precursor hormones, which are pregnenolone and DHEA. Pregnenolone actually builds the adrenal hormones as well. And that's the other side of the Dutch where it's looking at the adrenal hormones. So predominantly cortisol, DHEA, right? And then it kind of goes into different layers of levels of true active hormone and then levels of the storage form of the hormone. We won't go into that because I could get into a whole nother layer of like discussion here, which isn't
Yes.
relevant for the liver. But what's wonderful about this test and where I find value in running it, even with my IBS and IBD clients, say specifically, that might have hormone issues, but they're way less of a priority than the GI symptoms are, right? Is if I do suspect, based on, say, some of the questionnaires that they filled out, they have a toxic burden, that detox inhibition could be a driver for their GI symptoms. The Dutch is great for giving us information on how well everything is moving through those detoxification pathways. And so it's using the hormone metabolites as sort of a signature indicator for how well can the body move these things through these different phases of detoxification. And again, without getting too confusing or too in depth about what those are, just in simple terms, um, understand that when the liver is getting, whether it's hormone metabolites or toxic metabolites or its own, byproducts it's recycling and reusing ready to kind of eliminate or whatever, it needs to actually do different things to kind of package them up in specific ways and move them through these different pathways. And these different pathways, you can almost think of them as like, I don't know, maybe a connected piping system. And
Hmm.
if the
Yes.
thing has to go from point A to point C, and there's pipe A, B, and C, right? Like the
Yes.
liver has to do some specific things to move it through pipe A, pipe B, and pipe C. And
Yes.
in those different pipes, you could have blocks, right? You could have things that are
Mhm.
making it hard for that substrate to move through. And sometimes that's deficiencies in specific nutrients or minerals. Sometimes it's actual toxins themselves, like getting in the way and mucking up that pipe, if you will, and making it hard to move it through. it could be a lot of things going on. And so what's wonderful about the Dutch is we can look at pretty much most of the detoxification pathways directly. So let's say there's like, I don't know, four pipes, right? We've got A, B, C, and D. Let's just call A phase one,
Yeah.
B phase two, C phase three. And then D is kind of part of that, but it's its own glucuronidation pathway, right? Like we get that specifically from the GI map, which is a stool test that we've spoken of many times before in the past. It's a stool test we like to run. The Dutch will give us almost all of these markers or indicators minus glucuronidation. So it's a very complete, comprehensive way of understanding whether or not this individual has those pipes open and flowing. And yes, although it's showing us really in terms of hormones moving, we can then infer if the hormones aren't moving well, that means their chemical toxins, if they've got them, aren't moving well. It means other toxins in the body aren't moving well. And so it's a beautiful test for that. And I don't know if there's anything you want to add on to that, Maria.
No, I think, yeah, to keep into the to kind of a low level of understanding, because it becomes complex, right? There is
Yeah.
this phases, this buckets that you're talking about, one, two, and three, and pipes. I mean, and there's a lot, and that's why we like this test, is because it really is going to tell if the liver is, detoxifying properly. Sometimes, people methylate things faster than other times, right? So like, okay, it can might help explain, some of the cravings, irritability, fatigue, So oftentimes, if we think about it, especially women, right? We think about it as a hormone problem. Well, might not be actually a hormone problem. Part of what the Dutch allow us to do is it could be a methylation process, which is
Mhm.
basically the debris of this hormone processes. Methylation is basically your on and off switch of this detox process.
Mhm.
And the Dutch help us to see what's going on.
Mhm.
And like, the phase one that you're talking about is more like you break things down, right? The
Mhm.
liver is breaking things down. Phase two is like, okay, we methylate them, and
Mhm.
what basically puts them in a container to be safe to get out, which is
Mhm.
the phase three, right? That say, okay, let's ship this out, let's get out of this, this
Yep.
pipe, you know. So in normal terms, that's it. And we can see, if you can methylate things well, then, you can package, for example, estrogen safely. And then
Mhm.
what we can see is estrogen recirculating in the body. Well, that
Yeah.
has a significant amount of, issues in the long term.
Right.
So right there, it might not be, just a hormone issue.
Right.
It could be how the body is breaking these things and switching on and off, and how it's actually processing to let it go.
Exactly.
Um, so there is more to the story, and that's why we kind of look into multiple sometimes tests depending where the person is at, what they need, what their symptoms are, how
Yeah.
long they've been struggling with their health and what they're struggling about, because
Right.
all those things, they give different insights to the body,
Yeah. Yeah.
from the blood to the stool to their urine, hair, you name it.
Yeah.
There is different meanings, and there is different uh, I guess, answers that you can obtain, from it. And
Exactly.
we're not in the business of diagnosing anybody with any diseases.
Right.
We're here to figure it out, to help what is not working the way that should, maybe,
Yeah.
or it's best to
Yeah.
work. And then we dive in to find those root causes.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I agree, Maria. And I think just to keep this even super simple, like especially around the genetics, because I think so much of this comes down to just the power of having that black and white data and having that information. Like I think a lot of the clients that come to us, and this is probably true for us as well, especially in the beginning when we were trying to find the answers to our own health struggles, is intuitively you sometimes kind of know half of the puzzle anyhow. Like not to
Yeah.
simplify oversimplify this, but I feel like a lot of times the deepest thing that people really do need to kind of come to terms with or focus on is the way they're living their lives and their own stress inputs, whether that's mental, emotional stuff they're thinking, relationships they're having, their work, how they're relating to their outer world, how they're relating to their inner world. And, even on the Dutch, like if you had that in combination with, say, a genetic profile where you could match up what are the possibilities and how your genes could express. Now remember, with genetics, it's always possibilities. This isn't determinism,
Mhm.
but things like stress, I would almost say stress is hands down probably the biggest driver of maladaptive gene expression, right? So if we think
Mhm.
about what are the ways we can get the genes that we don't want to turn on to stay quiet, and the genes we do want to turn on, which are the more health optimization expressing genes to turn on, it's being very conscious and mindful of how you're living day in and day out and promoting
Yes.
a balanced stress state, balanced work, rest, play, having joy. Those, it sounds so simple, but it's not. This is the hardest part of our work, I
Mhm.
feel like. But on the Dutch, I mean, you can even see the body will push certain pathways that we could argue set the stage for a higher degree of like disease risk in the body, whether it's because it's an estrogen pathway that, you know, produces DNA damage more so than the others, or, you know, in the androgen pathway, you know, there's a preference that can drive certain problems in the body, both in men and women, that are not wanted or ideal. And a lot of times it will be stress that will push people more towards those pathways, and or they could have genetic preferences that way too, and that's where having the genetics can be helpful. But in
Mhm.
any event, we still have to come back to what do we have control over, right? Like, we
Mhm.
don't have control over some of these genetic potentials that we carry, but to the extent we can work on really hard the way we live, the way we think, the way we feel, you know, how we're taking care of ourselves, how much we're working and resting and playing, and surrounding ourselves with people that nurture us and support our health. That is probably the most powerful thing we can do to support those health optimization genes. And then by default, detoxification, right? Because let's just say it this way, if stress is pushing all these not so ideal pathways, we're now also adding more of a toxic burden to the liver, because now we've got more of these potential toxic metabolites getting pushed through the system versus the health promoting ones, right? Wouldn't you say that's true, Maria?
Oh, yes, absolutely. You said extremely well. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
When I'm going through genetics and looking into it, it's primarily lifestyle, and it's
Yeah.
about the expression of those genes. And we're not doomed to any of what is there. It's what we have in control. So it's making people aware. So, and oftentimes, it's about, why is this so important to you?
Mm-hmm.
What is that you want to eliminate? For example, those headaches, those cravings, why you want to lose that weight and feel better in your skin, why you don't want to feel moody and irritable, why you want to have more energy, you know why do you want to actually build muscle and feel great at the gym, whether you like or not to go to the gym, but what you like maybe is how you look and feel. you
Yep.
know why is important for you to not feel aches and pains, and
Right.
to really feel more in control? In the end of the day, it's about the control that I have, that you have,
Yes.
you know and
Yes.
yes, we don't have control of everything, but we have a lot of it.
Yes.
Will
Exactly.
that take an effort? Yes,
Yeah.
it will.
Yeah.
Do
Yeah.
we have to be perfect? No. Do we want to look into certain things that bring, more stressors to the body and dive into those? Yes, that might be a great idea. And
Yeah.
sometimes it starts with nutrition, sometimes comes from relationships that we have.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes is, I hate to say, a job. Is there
Yeah.
something that we need to do at that current job or another job, you know, to help reduce some of that stressor? So there is always an answer.
Mm-hmm.
There is always multiple ways to address. And we can get stuck thinking that there is only one way. There is more than one.
Yeah.
I often refer to John Maxwell. I do some business coaching and stuff too. But and John Maxwell is a big, is a writer. I think close to 100 books, and he's in leadership, motivation, and all that. I love the guy. He's like,
Yeah.
I think maybe 80 years old now.
Oh, wow.
But has built an amazing empire, and he's funny, and he's a phenomenal communicator. You know, and so he says that early in his career, he used to be in the office, and everybody would come to his damn office and with a problem. And he's basically spending being interrupted, quite often to answer questions.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, I'm done with this. And he's like, there is more than one answer. He's like, you are just not thinking through. So he put a kind of rule, it says, when you have a problem that you want some solutions, you don't come to me unless you have 3 solutions.
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
And and if we think about it, if we take that approach,
Yeah.
right, to anything that we want to change
Yeah.
with our health, lifestyle, business, job, you name it. Wow, wouldn't that be something? Because all of a sudden, you're thinking outside the box, potentially.
Yeah.
And you might want to get answers that you don't like it. Like
Yeah.
last night, I was, exchanging notes with a client. You might not like what I'm saying, what I'm
Yeah.
suggesting, but that's the plain truth.
Right.
We have to look at this in a different way.
Totally, Maria.
If things are not working the way we want, and it says, well, this doesn't taste the same, or this doesn't look the same. So, well, obviously, I mean, you're not eating the same thing, so it's going to taste the same. Can
Yeah.
we adapt our mindset here?
Yeah. Yeah.
Why are we making this potential change? Is that an adaptation that we're changing our taste buds, for example? Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that something that is going to take some time? Yes. And it says,
Yeah.
be curious, not judgmental,
Yeah.
right? To the process.
Yeah.
And I think that is key for all of us trying to change anything in our lives,
Exactly.
especially on our health and wellness.
Yeah.
Because, hey, this is only one that we got.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, and I think this is just such a key piece you're bringing up, and I love it because I'm such a huge fan of coaching, business, life, health, all of it, right? Like the principles of coaching are just so powerful, but the premise that we always have to come from is the individual's in ultimate control, right? And for it to really work, for coaching to really work, whether you're doing it with yourself or you're doing it in the context of having a coach you, is you do have to come to this place within yourself where you totally take responsibility for everything in your life, And I mean, I'm not saying that unexpected things don't happen, but even just as we're on this thread, Maria, I mean, I just recently had a conversation with a client, and he and I have had this kind of and laugh. We can laugh at it, right? Like a few times over, and he doesn't see me for nutrition, but he's very interested and he dabbles and blah blah blah. But he was telling me like, ultimately, although I do want to lose weight and I do want to feel better, I just don't want to do the work. I don't want to put the work in with my diet to do it. And I at least praised him for being completely honest and owning that, right? Because I
Yeah.
think from my perspective, there's absolutely nothing wrong with deciding to not take action. Where it does become a problem is when you complain about what you want to change and you're not willing to acknowledge what's getting in the way of that, right? And what you're saying with this John Maxwell piece is that if we could all at least take a step back and question, why is it I want the thing that I want in my life? Why is it I want the change I want in my life? And okay, if the motivation is there and the desire is there, then what are maybe 3 possible things I could do to get that? Or what are the 3 things that are standing in the way of me changing this? First of all, it accesses your own resourcefulness. And then secondly, it puts you in the driver's seat. And I know when I'm coaching clients, I'm always trying to resource their own ideas about how to solve a problem first, because behavior change theory tells us that if you can be your own source of wisdom and information, you're going to like your own solution better than anything I have to offer up. Now, granted, there are times when clients are just like, actually, I really do need help with this. Can you give me some ideas? I just don't know, right?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
great. I can give you ideas. But, like, especially with this more soft stuff, like the mental, emotional barriers, the lifestyle barriers, I mean, you know your own life, you know your own mind far better than I do. And chances are, 9 times out of 10, people they have ideas if they're willing to actually critically think and ask themselves and think on it deep enough. And then it's the process of going through plan A, plan B, plan C with someone who can mirror and give them that feedback and bounce it back off of. they'll come right to what they want to do 9 times out of 10, and that's the magic of the process. And so, yeah, I just think it's like, it's brilliant, Maria. I mean, this is what most people hopefully should be coming to, but I think we live in this culture where unfortunately, what's coming at us all the time is this kind of, I mean, I hate to say it, but like lazy default push a button, or I'll give you the answer, or just, not to throw doctors under the bus, but go and see your doctor. Your doctor will tell you what to do. And it precludes the need to think for yourself. It precludes the need to actually like sit down with yourself and have some deeper thinking around like what's going on here, and like what do I really want, and what do I think I need to do. And I mean, you need to be an active participant, I would argue, in all areas of your life. But with your health, if you want to reach the goal you're setting for yourself, you're going to have to sort of get to this place of ownership in that and really resourcing what is it I want to do. And that's just not what culture advocates for in our world, right? It's just push a button and make it easy, or go to the store and it's in front of you and you'll know what it is. Like, you don't, people, I just don't think are thinking or encouraged to think like they probably could be or should be. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that is the, we in what you just said over here remind me of the stress, right?
Yeah.
And going back a little bit about that conversation and ownership of that as well.
Yeah.
First, a lot of us don't realize how much is stress we are in, but then there is this stress that almost we're seeking.
Mm-hmm.
And, one of my clients for a while was going through a lot with politics. It was like this is really it's really causing some problems, for her. And she's actually a former physician,
Oh, wow.
herself. And she's like, this is driving me insane. And then we went, well, walk me through what's going on, right? And in the end of the day, and it says, after a person like that is reminded of how much stress can create this metabolic issues, because even her, with her A1C definitely above, getting close to a diabetic level. Like, I eat, not bad. I don't do this. I don't do that. I don't do this. This is more than food.
Yeah.
And yes, we can optimize. We are definitely going to look into it, make
Yeah.
tweaks over here, but there is alcohol. What is the alcohol?
Right.
Why does a person need, I'm going to say need, or build the habit of it? And so it's asking more of the questions. Why do I have certain tendencies?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Or certain habits, is what is driving this? Is again that curious mindset.
Yeah.
And then
Totally.
if you think about, okay, the politics is okay, so now we got maybe the root cause of it. That's creating some stressors that now you need to calm down so then you can sleep. Okay, now how is the alcohol creating problems with that sleep, metabolic health, liver, all that we
Yeah.
could see, by the way, all those things. And it
Yeah.
says, okay, what are the choices? What can you do over here to actually decrease this stress coming from the news?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Okay,
Yeah.
is that watching less of the news? Is that maybe taking different action, that go to your local government and, I don't know, discuss this? What is it? Because
Yeah.
this could be a huge contributor
Totally.
to your health declining.
Totally, Maria.
And we don't, I'm very inquisitive and I'm always asking the why, the why, the why, and I might piss people off, you know, even friends. And it says, why, or what is driving? So, look, can we think a little deeper and deeper over here? What is causing something? And sometimes we don't like to open that. I call the Pandora's box.
Yeah, it's true.
I'm like, maybe don't have to discuss with me, right?
Yeah.
But are we getting to that box? And now we have to look into that box.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we can get very easily into autopilot mode where we just make decisions and do things in a pattern kind of on repeat without thinking about why is it we're doing the things we're doing. And I think kind of what you're
Right.
getting at, and I totally agree with this, is like every action we take is ultimately a choice. And if we
Yes.
don't know why we're making the choices we're making, we might need to take a minute and think a little bit about, even though this choice is causing us stress or unwanted repercussions, there must be a benefit to making the choice too, right? Like all of these
Yeah.
things have some sort of cost benefit analysis. And I think that's where sometimes, although these choices could be compelling in some ways, using that higher level of thinking to say, okay, ultimately, even though I keep making this choice and I'm getting a short term benefit from this, the long term consequences, I'm actually feeling super stressed, or I'm actually, this is happening for me. And again, it
Right.
kind of comes back to like exercising that discipline. Like, I mean, for me personally, Maria, yes, I don't engage with a lot of media or news. And I'm very naive about what's going on in the world. But I will tell you, if something really big happens, I'm going to hear about it. People are going to
Yeah.
tell me about it. So I know I'm not going to miss a world war. I'm not going to miss like something major going on. But I can't tell you how okay I am with that choice of just opting out of that, because I've got enough going on with my day to day and trying to manage myself and my world and the people, I am responsible for. Like, I don't need all that world event stuff that's predominantly negative that I have very little direct control over to add that extra layer of anxiety and stress on top of that. Like, that to me was a pretty easy, like, hell no
Mhm.
choice, right? But I understand for other people, it might not be because there is something else they're getting that's of some greater benefit potentially than it would be for me to be in the know. There's something there. And my choice
Mhm.
might not be the right choice for everybody, but I think whatever choice we're talking about to go through this kind of exercise holds a lot of value. Like, you should always be willing to go back and re-examine any and every choice you've ever made in your life. Like, I truly believe, like, you should be willing to change your mind 100 times over if need be. You should be willing to change your stance on a topic or a thing. Like, that's the beauty of being dynamic human beings. We're not meant to just make a choice once and stick with it and never rethink it. You know what I mean?
Mhm. Yes, yes, absolutely. I love it. I love it. Yes.
We've kind of
Choices,
gone down like
choice.
a random rabbit hole, but this, I feel like this
I
held a lot of value just to kind of go down this path, today.
Yeah,
So,
I
yeah.
think so too. Yes. I mean, ultimately, it's still related to the liver
Yes,
and
it
the
is.
toxins and the
Yes.
stress. And you started actually with that conversation of cortisol and glucose. So now we're kind of winding down over here to that. Look, in the end of the day, I think maybe we can talk briefly over here some things that people can do so they can go on with their day for today.
I love it. Yeah.
And I think the bottom line, there is a lot to this liver conversation. What we
Mhm.
do know is that the liver isn't, isn't supported, by just doing on a 7-day cleanse, right?
Yes. Yes.
You won't have, if the liver is not working extremely well or well enough, right? You won't have the energy that you're seeking, your mental clarity, your mood stability, your this metabolism that helps us to navigate the ins and outs of choices
Yeah.
that we have. So detoxification is not a 7-day kind of event. It's really a metabolic style, I
Yeah.
think,
Yeah.
lifestyle, and it's absolutely doable.
Yeah.
I'm speaking from my own experience. You are as well. It's a journey,
Yeah.
right? And what we're saying also here is start with the choices that you make from what you decide to eat, drink, think, consume from the news, from the TV, from anything that you want, right?
Yeah.
How much you move your body, because all those things are going to be important for the liver and for your health.
Yes. Yes.
And so we do have choices and we don't have to do them all,
Yeah.
at the same time,
Yeah.
and that's where the value of having a kind of a candid, honest conversation, like looking into, okay, what is it? That's part of what we do, right? With our clients, we see health assessments and we have a discussion about it. That helps somebody just completing something like that is like, okay, I haven't thought about this in a while.
Yeah.
right? And then we kind of help then, if we're doing some functional lab testing and things like that, then we kind of start putting the eyes on the dots.
Exactly.
But we're also saying that it's going to start with diet,
Yeah.
in most cases,
Yeah.
right? Because if you think about what is really supporting the phases of that we talked about, the spipes 1, 2, and 3, and all that, it's going to be dietary changes too. Is your B vitamins, antioxidants, from your reds and purples foods, so
Hmm.
where you get those things? Well, you can get those vitamins, and B vitamins especially from your leafy greens, from your eggs, from nuts and seeds, cruciferous vegetables like cauliflower, broccoli and all that, okay, well, can I do maybe more of that a little bit?
Exactly.
Oh,
Exactly.
okay. You know,
Exactly.
phase two, we did different types of foods, right? Now we're kind of trying to package stuff up, okay. Again, cruciferous vegetables,
Hmm.
they play a big role. Onions, garlic, cabbage. I mean, this is food. And you notice that those foods, we're not even saying that is meats, right?
Yeah.
So you and I talked about in the past, this dogmatic approach of a carnivore only diet or keto
Sure.
or vegan.
Yeah.
This encompasses multiple things,
Yeah.
food,
Yeah.
and that's why the importance of having a good relationship with food,
Hmm.
you know. And then how are we going to eliminate this out of the body? Well,
Right.
one of the key things to eliminate things out of the body is to sweat.
Yeah. Very true, Maria.
How much motility exercise helps with is
Hmm.
very important. Sweating through exercise or a sauna or things like that. We all hear about sauna benefits, Well, you can make your own sauna by sweating. you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
but
Or
it's part of the process too, right?
yeah.
So,
Yeah. Right.
okay, I mean, can you do it's staying hydration? How are we gonna get it out?
Exactly.
I don't know about your clients, but about 100% of mine are dehydrated in a way or not. I mean,
Yeah.
literally, I mean, it's very rare that I bump into somebody who is drinking enough water.
Water. Hmm.
So how are we going to eliminate these things, without proper hydration? And what's going to help with that? Fiber. I mean, vegetable flax seeds, chia seeds, all this kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
To
Yeah.
support, the elimination process.
Yeah.
So
Totally.
having that relationship with food is important. And the diversification of it in now adding the exercise piece of it. If you just want to think about that, cleansing the body. Oh, let's move
Exactly.
a little bit more. Wake up. Hey, go for a short walk if you can. 10
Yeah.
minutes. Hey, great. And keep moving. I mean, those are basics. They don't cost anything. If we're already spending money on food, can we maybe
Totally.
look at that budget? Because we also hear, oh, eating healthy is expensive. Well, let's assess how else are you eating, the budget that we have. And I
Right.
bet that there was ways. And I remember doing this exercise with one of my guinea pig clients back on 2014, you
Yeah.
know? Yeah. And she's like, oh my God, I'm fearful that the diet. And says, no, let's look into the budget. And I look at, we talk about, I have this much. She said, I have this much per week. They were in a tight budget,
Yeah.
and she had just a baby. And we look and it says, okay, swap this for that, this for that. It was just like, so wow, it
It's
can be done.
possible.
It's
Yeah.
possible.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing people don't think about is well, I'll say this, Maria. I don't think too many people are literally tracking their in and out spending rigidly, right? So I think although people will say it's not in the budget, I would also assert they probably really aren't adhering to whatever this mystical budget is. I think people have patterns of spending money, and this is kind of the point I'm trying to make. Like, if we look at statistically how often the average American eats out every week, that's inherently always going to be more expensive than any food you're going to go get from the grocery store and prep at home. And I would almost go so far as to say you might even be saving money if you get higher quality grocery store food, take it home and prep it than eating out. But see, people don't question that because the convenience of the benefit of that far outweighs the potential cost savings. So I think when it comes to budget, it's a very kind of loose term that gives people ways to justify kind of why they want to keep doing the things they're doing without necessarily truly looking at, but are there ways to, without increasing your overall food spend, make some strategic changes or swaps here where we could improve the quality of what you're eating and it won't necessarily cost you an arm and a leg. I don't think a lot of people literally do the math and like
Yes.
verify that it would cost them exorbitantly more. They just make that assumption that it will, right?
Yes, and I will say this, for our most of the people that you and I work, they're working bees, right?
Hmm.
They are busy professionals, and when we say the word prep, they're like ding 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 ding. I don't have the time.
Right, right.
So I think that there is more over here to the conversation. I agree
Totally.
100% about the budget. I
Yes.
agree that most people are just maybe going out, grabbing this or the DoorDash or this and that, right?
Hmm.
And or in the lunch break, they go to the cafeteria or those kind of things. This
Hmm.
happens day in and out,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, or they're socializing, or, sometimes a lot of the individuals that I work with, they're eating out because of meetings,
Sure. Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
We have choices. We do have choices. We can eat out and healthy, by the way,
Right.
or
Exactly.
healthier.
Yep.
We again is a choice. It's just understanding what the body needs and prioritizing that. You can do that unless don't tell me to go to a Taco Bell. Okay, that doesn't exist anything healthy in that place. So let's not go there, okay?
Exactly,
But
Maria.
but it's the time. So the next thing is like I don't have the time. Now, let's do a little
Time
overview how the
study.
time is spent.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. It starts
So,
to unfortunately derail or unravel, kind of in a sense, good, bad, or otherwise, like looking at multiple areas of your life when you're on a health journey. It's not just going to be as simple as like, only diet and food. That's all like, because one thing bleeds into the next. And I would argue the process of getting healthy really does, for the people who are committed, cause them to, I think, really look at many areas of their life and
yes.
decide differently, decide that they're going to actually start to change some things across. Because for one thing to succeed, you're almost always going to have to change something over here at the same time. And that's
Yeah.
not a bad thing. And I think people can be afraid of that process, but I think it's the same as being afraid of just what we don't know or what we haven't tried or what's foreign to us, right? And I would encourage you, like we've been talking throughout this conversation, just be curious and open. And instead of coming at it from the fear of like, oh God, how could this cause more strain and time and whatever for me? Maybe assume the best case scenario. Like, what if this is actually easier than I thought it was going to be? And the end outcome is I feel so much better, right? I just
Yes.
don't know how to get there yet. Well, that's great because there's plenty of tools and people and resources that can help with that. But don't get in the way of just imagining it's going to be hell, which it'll shut down emotionally, even wanting to go there, right? Like, assume it could be amazing. And the only
Hmm.
thing getting in the way is just not having that plan or the resource or the guide to get you there. Well, that's an easy problem to solve, right? There's plenty of that out there to help, whether it's
Yes.
us, Maria, or something else that you come across, right,
Yeah,
in your journey,
we're
right?
definitely open for a conversation as long as you are open for,
Yes.
staying curious
Yeah.
that there is more than one way, more than one solution to get you there. And
Yes.
understand that, yes, you spoke perfectly about it's not about nutrition only. Sometimes people see it like now it's even from a nutrition standpoint, we're talking how we're going to make time to maybe cook a little bit more from home. So
Exactly.
now we're talking about time management. While time management might get to, it's stress management, might tag to
Exactly.
several other aspects of your life. So it is going to be touching multiple things. And I
Exactly.
think it's just it's like chapters in a book,
Yeah. Exactly.
right? It's just, okay, there is more than one chapter. Why? Because there's segments, there's things in our life that we got to, but it's being
Exactly.
open that this is going to happen and it's at your pace.
Hmm.
we're not to dictate the pace.
Exactly.
We might lay out some of the imbalance that we see, especially if we're using functional lab tests like genetics, Dutch, GI map, or whatever, the toxin, mycotoxins, you name it, right?
Yeah.
But it's the pace, but understanding what is driving potentially this issues from a test, which is the result of what? Choices.
Exactly. Exactly.
And
Right.
some genetic predispositions, right? Yes, we
Right.
cannot forget about, but it's normally that is a small piece, 5-10%,
Right. Right. Right.
but it's the choices. So, okay, can we assess what are the choices maybe that are not helping us? And then we start one at a time, and some of these choices might take a little longer to kind of tweak a little bit because we've been doing it for so long, or there is a belief system, right?
Yeah.
Like just what you said earlier about the belief that, okay, this is going to be hell. And it says, no, this is about to free myself,
Exactly.
about
Exactly.
to feel like a new person. So you know what? Let's be patient here because this might have been going on for like, I don't know, 40 years, 30 years, 50 years. And now I want the results next week. I'm sorry, ain't going to happen.
Right. 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 Yes. We have to be realistic about all that for sure. For sure,
Right,
Maria. Yeah.
right. But in the meantime, so we want you to have a little bit of idea about this topic of the liver and life and nutrition and stress and metabolism and all that and testing. And we understand that the end of the year is here. We're just, now going to roll into the Christmas and for busy professionals there, they're like from one party to the next and they're hosting. And you're like, why are you talking about my liver and alcohol and food choices now? It says, you can make choices within this time frame. You
It's
can,
true. It's
right?
true.
Let's
It's
give
true.
them some pointers over here of things that they can do, starting today.
Yeah.
Why don't you start? And I add in as needed.
Yeah, that sounds good, Maria. I mean, I just think the biggest thing that comes to mind, and we've already kind of touched on this, is just making a plan, right? And I mean, this could even involve literally sitting down with your calendar, carving out 20 minutes on a quiet time during your week, if that's Sunday morning or whenever works for you. And most people by this point in the year have a pretty good idea of what's coming down the pipe through the rest of the year, right? So if you're going to be attending work functions, social gatherings, what have you, like literally, why not take a look at your calendar and make a list or track those things? And then, I think one of the most powerful things people can do to avoid pitfalls that they don't mean to fall into is pre-decide now how you want to approach those things. Are you okay with giving yourself complete freedom and leeway and just go into those situations with no expectations on following a particular diet or doing X or Y or Z for yourself? Great. Own that choice and be happy with that choice, right? If you do desire to avoid alcohol, if you do desire to avoid gluten or whatever your regimen is you want to try to maintain, what are one or two things that you can decide on now or put into place to help yourself in those situations? Does it mean you're going to have to bring your own mocktails? Does it mean you're going to have to cook something that you really, really love and maybe feel happy to share with other people? And that could be a win-win and a fun little centerpiece to talk about. You bring maybe some like gluten-free pumpkin cinnamon rolls to a brunch you're attending or something, right? And it can be kind of inspiring to go through this because you might start to generate a lot of creative ideas on how you could solve your own problems that are coming down the pike. And just in taking that time right now ahead of time and like generating those ideas. And then if you think of them and you want to run with that, literally block it out. If you have to make those cinnamon rolls, block a time out the day before the event to do it, right? Like create your plan to succeed for the holidays. And the only other thing I'll add with this is if you go through this exercise and you do create this plan for yourself, and let's say it does include avoiding alcohol or gluten or whatever it is, and then you go into the event and you do fall short and you do indulge, try really hard not to come out of that beating yourself up, but make maybe another time at the end of the year. Most of us do this with New Year's coming anyhow, to just reflect on like thinking back on what I aim to do for myself at these three gatherings, this is what actually happened. And what do I think was the biggest one or two barriers that prevented me from succeeding in those efforts, right? I know with my coaching with clients, when they're failing repeatedly on a new behavior or habit they're trying to implement, I will go back to them and say, okay, if you don't have the answer now, that's okay. But I want you to go into the situation again at some point in the future, and we're going to test this again. And when you're in that moment, I really want you to pay attention to what is coming up for you. Is it a feeling that you're uncomfortable with that's driving you to do this? Is it peer pressure? Is it a thought? Like, let's get very specific and don't be afraid of running that experiment, because the more we can identify what it is, now we have clear data that we can take back to the table and try to troubleshoot this again and keep working on it. And eventually we'll get it. We'll solve it. We'll figure out a way to help you get this goal. But we have to get very conscious of what is going on when these failures are happening. So don't be afraid to fail. I guess it's the other piece I'm trying to say is like, don't be afraid to plan and don't be afraid to fail, because all failure is just data points to go back and relook at and troubleshoot again. So that's what I have, Maria. What do you have to add to that?
Darn, I love it. I love what a closure with the not feeling. Yes, the failure is so key. Such a beautiful, yes, it's a way that it's in business and in life and school, whatever it is. We just learn from that. And that goes back to that staying curious, right?
Yes,
And
yes.
understanding that this might take some time. Be patient. You got to be patient, right? So a
Yes.
few things to add, I think. We're talking about the plan, and it sounds like work, but it's part of the process. It's
Mm-hmm.
so essential to have that plan and reflect and take. I look at my calendar, on multiple times a day, but on the weekends, that's what I'm looking. I'm shifting and doing this and that and that. So it's the same thing. If you're looking at your work schedule and it says, hold on, it's my health schedule,
Yeah.
right? That's
Yeah.
part of what you're looking at. It says, what is my health in here?
Yeah.
From moving my body, can we tweak a few things, because we can always tweak stuff on the calendar. We can always say no, by the way.
True.
We are in the driver's seat of saying what yes and no to most stuff, unless it's shoveled down from the top, right? But most of the time is yes. What can I say no here or move this so I can make time for my health schedule as well?
Yep.
Whether you say, I'm going to move in somewhere or another 20 minutes a day.
Mm-hmm.
And if you need to break down 10 in the morning, 10 later, that's okay too.
Yeah.
Movement is flow, movement is energy. So let's add that. So let's make room in that calendar for movement.
Mm-hmm.
So how about things that we just said earlier about hydration? Can we actually assess and see, where am I at? The other day I was talking, the person is saying, I drink about 2 glasses a day. And I says, well, we got a lot of room for improvement, and that's great, right? I'm like, 2 glasses a day. So let's make some room over here to strategically and pacefully start increasing that until we get to half of body weight in water,
Right.
in
Right.
ounces of water. So let's try that. So basic, doesn't cost you anything. What it talks is you taking the time to assess,
Yeah.
which is part of this planning thing.
Yeah.
So, okay, how about foods? We mentioned about foods. We're talking about cruciferous vegetables. We talk about fiber. I mean, how much of that am I eating every day? Okay,
Mm-hmm.
can we add a little bit more of that? So oftentimes people think about a healthy lifestyle that they're cutting, 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 cutting out. I cannot
Yeah.
do this. I cannot do this. No, actually, there's a lot of adding.
Yeah.
There's a
Yeah.
lot of adding.
Yeah.
So let's add some more, unprocessed foods. Let's instead of eating a whole pizza, we do half of that, and the salad comes in first. Well, that would be great. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And
So yeah,
yeah,
go
just
ahead.
take even one or two of those ideas, because you gave a lot of great ones, right, Maria? Like, so if you're not a person if you're a person who feels overwhelmed easily, or you're like, oh my God, I'm so busy. I don't even know if I can like increase my water. okay, maybe that's not the one to focus on, but like again, what resonates, right? Because
Yeah.
generally, if you've got a buffet of choices, like usually most people are gonna be like, well, I feel like I kind of want to do this first, right? So go with what feels most resonant right now. That's what you should be focusing on. There's probably five other things you could do too, but let's, what is realistic and doable? And I think those are great options, Maria. Yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, there is always things, and we are not in the world of lacking information.
Totally.
I would just we're just giving you a few examples here,
Yeah.
but there is so much, and that is where the assessment of your life or habits, come in. What you're doing on a daily basis, awareness is number one, then a plan of getting, and then saying it's going to be one step at a time. And
Totally.
I'm going to focus on this because you know what? And I like, first of all, anytime I'm making a change, I like to see what is the easiest one that I can celebrate because
Right.
it's about celebration.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you know what? I knocked that out. I love the checking the list. I love to kind of, yes, got it.
Yes.
Okay, got it.
Yes.
That keeps me pumped.
Yes. It's a
So what
dopamine
would
hit.
keep you pumped? To
Yes.
say, oh my God, I got it.
Mm-hmm.
And you
Yeah.
know what? Okay, let's rinse and repeat.
Yeah.
Rinse and repeat until it's like, okay, yes, there is no question that I'm gonna move today
Yeah.
for 20
Totally.
minutes. Yeah. Okay, now knock this one down. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
let's go to the next one.
Yes, yes. The more you can create action items or goals for yourself, small little goals, and knock them out, that increases self-belief, that increases confidence, and that increases capacity to actually stay on track with your big goal, right? And it creates those little dopamine hits, like you were just saying, Maria, right? Like it feels good to say you're going to do something and then execute and then feel within yourself like I did that. I was capable of doing that, right? And so the next time another challenge comes up, you're going to be more likely to lean into it rather than be like, I don't know, like I've not done that before, right? And that's how we all grow. And I think that's the secret. What you're saying right there is like just start with the lowest hanging fruit, the easiest win. That might still be a bit of a challenge, but you're pretty sure you can do it if you just do it, right? Next time around, it's going to give that fuel to do it again. So, yeah, I love it.
Yes.
Well,
Beautiful.
good. Well, this was an awesome conversation. We kind
I
of
know.
went down the coaching path a bit, but I think it was well worth it. It all relates, and I hope everybody listening has gotten a lot of just good stuff to think about in the holiday season, whether we're talking food or environmental inputs, news, right? People, otherwise, right? Just the pressures we feel to do all these things in the holiday season. All of that impacts the liver and detoxification. It's all stuff coming in that we have to process and do stuff with, right? But yeah, before we close out, is there anything you want to mention, Maria?
No, this was great. And yes, folks, stay encouraged, stay positive, curious. This is a journey. And, if we can help you with that, we are here to do so. Don't hesitate to reach out to Courtney or myself.
Did you find this episode informative and helpful? I'd love to have you leave me a 5-star rating. Do you have questions about holistic approaches to optimizing gut health that you'd like to ask? Please leave your question or comment below, and I will be sure to address it personally or cover it in a future episode. Be sure to check the show notes for any resources mentioned in today's episode. See you next time.